the mystery of the lost 18 years of Jesus. There is hardly any information about Jesus and his early life. What we do know is supposition, hearsay, mixed with a load of nonsense. So, let's start by identifying what we do know if you have faith in the Bible, of course. Unfortunately, Dark Histories is extremely skeptical of the accuracy of the biblical passages for one main reason: it was written and translated by man. Then there is the exclusion of the non-canonical Gospels. Who decided what stays and what goes? Man, of course. The entire Bible was edited and published by man, to suit a very predictable narrative. Let's kick on and start with the two events that are the two most historically certain, with the most evidence confirming their occurrence: his death and baptism. The death of Jesus occurred in 1st century Judea, most likely in AD 30 or AD 33. It is described in the 4 canonical Gospels, referred to in the New Testament epistles, confirmed by other ancient sources, and considered an established historical event by many, especially Christians. There is, however, very little consensus amongst historians on the details. In the canonical Gospels, Jesus is arrested and tried by the Sanhedrin, and then by Pontius Pilate, who sentences him to be whipped and finally crucified. There's a 3-year gap of uncertainty regarding his physical death. Dark Histories will settle on AD 30 for this video. It is widely accepted that John the Baptist baptized Jesus in 29 AD. This was a major event in the life of Jesus and is regarded as the starting point for his ministry and healing. It is considered to have taken place at Almatas, also called Bethany beyond the Jordan. What this means is that most of the New Testament only covers approximately 1 year of his 30-year life. Now are some mentions of other moments, but they are fairly fleeting. For example, in Luke chapter 2 verses 41 to 52, Jesus at the age of 12 accompanies Mary and Joseph, and a large group of their relatives and friends to Jerusalem on pilgrimage. On the day of their return, Jesus lingered in the temple, but Mary and Joseph thought that he was among their group when he wasn't. They headed back home and after a day of travel realized Jesus was missing, so they returned to Jerusalem, finding Jesus 3 days later. He was found in the temple in discussion with the elders. They were amazed at his learning, especially given his young age. The next mention is his baptism, some 18 years later. Now what we find interesting is that the elders were amazed at his intelligence given his age. So, who was teaching him, or was this merely divinity that flowed through his body at this tender age? Regarding the lost 18 years there have been numerous theories, some extremely odd, others with a whiff of the plausible. Let's look at our top 3. Number 3. Jesus went to Tibet, India and Tibet. Russian war correspondent Nicholas Notovich claimed that whilst visiting the Hemis monastery in Ladakh, he had learned of a document called the Life of Saint Isa, Best of the Sons of Men. Isa is the Muslim name given to Jesus. According to this document, Jesus left Jerusalem at the age of 13 and set out towards Sindh, modern-day Pakistan, as he intended to improve and perfect himself in the divine understanding and to study the laws of the great Buddha. He crossed Punjab and reached Puri Jagannath, where he studied the Vedas under Brahmin priests. He spent 6 years in Puri and Rajur, near Nalanda, the ancient seat of Hindu learning. Then he went to the Himalayas, and spent time in Tibetan monasteries, studying Buddhism. He would return to Jerusalem at the age of 29, just before his baptism by John. Obviously, such massive claims were met with immediate criticism. Further investigation by other historians had the whole claim labeled a hoax of extremely bad taste. In the end, there wasn't a single scholar in the archaeological or religious studies community who backed his claims or thought them remotely genuine. However, the mystery was reopened when in 1922, Swami Abhedananda, the president of the Vedanta Society of New York and the author of several books, went to the Himalayas on foot and reached Tibet, where he studied Buddhist philosophy and Tibetan Buddhism. He went to the Hemis monastery, and allegedly found the manuscript translated by Notovich, which was a Tibetan translation of the original scrolls written in Pali. The Lama said that it was a copy and that the original was in a monastery at Marburg near Lhasa. After Abhedananda's death in 1939, one of his disciples inquired about the documents at the Hemis monastery but was told that they had disappeared. In 1925, Nicholas Roerich recorded his travels through Ladakh in India. This portion of his journal was published in 1933 as part of Altai Himalaya. He recounts legends of Isa shared with him by the Ladakhi people and lamas, including that Isa traveled from Palestine to India with merchants and taught the people. At Dark Histories, we think this would have been an extremely dangerous and difficult journey for the Son of God to be risked on. Although perhaps when your father is God, you have exceptionally good travel insurance. This theory does explain why there is so little information on him for these 18 years, because he wasn't even in the country. Number 2. Jesus in Japan. This particularly fun theory is based on the beliefs of the people of Shingo, in the Aomori prefecture. They believe that during this mystery 18-year period, Jesus visited Japan. He was so enamored with the area that he managed to escape his crucifixion with someone taking his place and that he then traveled to Japan. He married, had 2 children, and lived out the rest of his life in Shingo where he is buried. A Christian church, repurposed into a Legend of Christ museum, currently sits at the Tomb of Christ site in Shingo and can be visited for a 100 yen entrance fee. This one gave us a chuckle and frankly seemed so absurd it deserved number 2. Number 1. Jesus goes to England. The story of Jesus visiting Britain as a boy is a late medieval development based on legends connected with Joseph of Arimathea. During the late 12th century, Joseph of Arimathea became connected with the Arthurian cycle, appearing in them as the first keeper of the Holy Grail. This idea first appears in Robert de Boron's Joseph d'Arimathie, in which Joseph receives the Grail from an apparition of Jesus and sends it with his followers to Britain. This theme was elaborated on by further works from other authors. Some Arthurian legends hold that Jesus traveled to Britain as a boy, lived at Priddy in the Mendips, and built the first wattle cabin at Glastonbury. William Blake's early 19th century poem And Did Those Feet in Ancient Time was inspired by the story of Jesus traveling to Britain. In some versions, Joseph was supposedly a tin merchant and took Jesus under his care when his mother Mary was widowed. Gordon Strachan wrote Jesus the Master Builder, Druid Mysteries and the Dawn of Christianity, in which he discusses beliefs that Jesus may have traveled to Britain to study with the Druids. Arthurian legends have always been amazing stories, and this is no different, but it is clearly just that, a story. Still, some amazing artistic license have been used to create this tale. In conclusion, we at Dark Histories have a much simpler but no less controversial answer. We believe that he was a carpenter before he became a preacher and minister. Like all young Jewish boys at the time, he would have been taught a trade and that would have fallen to Joseph. But most importantly, we believe that Jesus got married, as it is highly unlikely that a Jewish man would have got to 30 without finding a wife. At the time, it was considered right and proper to be married by age 20 and sometimes even age 18. We believe that he suffered the loss of his wife, and it was this moment that set him on his path, beginning with baptism. Then of course there is the question of children. We believe that if biologically possible he would have had kids. He was young, virile, and it was expected. From a Christian perspective, why wouldn't God have wanted all of this for his child? But yes, we don't believe there were these massive philosophical and educational pilgrimages around the world, but rather he lived a simple life as a Jewish carpenter doing exactly what would have been expected of him.